Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome. Come on in. Don't be afraid to say hello. I hope you grabbed your lunch, maybe a quick drink, but you can drop a hello in the comments to let me know that you are there. I am going live currently on my Facebook page, my LinkedIn page, and my YouTube. Hello, hello. Hey, Sherry, how's it going? So, one of the things that is going to be very important to me today is I want to make sure that this stays a micro learning and that I don't necessarily exceed the 30 minutes. This is going to be my first live micro learning. So, I'm super excited about everyone that will be able to join, but I'm very conscientious of the time. So, if there's no one here, that's just fine. We're going to move along on schedule and then they'll be able to watch the replay. All right. But as you guys come in, drop a quick hello. I would love that. This is definitely going to be an interactive session. So I will be asking you questions and kind of expecting you to drop something in the chat as we move along. Today, we're going to talk about how to lead through disagreement. Right now, socially, politically, things are a little polarizing, and we still have to go to work. We still have to go to church. We still have to interact with the people in our lives, although we may have opposing views. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time today really talking about how do we lead through disagreement, whether that's at work, at home. I'll drop a couple of tips and definitely would love to hear your feedback in the comments. So, as people are getting themselves situated, getting their lunch together so that they can join in, we're going to go ahead and move along, dive into the tips for today, and we'll keep it moving. Hey, Yolanda, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint. You'll see me go down into the corner. You'll see that PowerPoint come up and it's leading through disagreement. So I am streaming live from StreamYard, and sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect when it comes to PowerPoint. Some of the words or things are shift. So I'm still getting a little bit of mastery of how to strategically design the PowerPoint so that it doesn't shift when I transition over to StreamYard. So bear with me if you see a couple of words off, but that is why. Hey, I see Liz join. Hello. Thank you for coming in and saying hello. As people are arriving, definitely come in, say hello. There'll be opportunities for you to join in on the fun. I'll be asking a few questions as I move along, but let's get right in it, right? So again, today's topic, leading through disagreement, and we're just going to talk about how that works. A little bit about me before I go too far in. Again, my name is Doris Jackson Shazier. This is my first LinkedIn Live by myself. I've done LinkedIn Live as a guest, but haven't led one by myself. So I'm super excited about creating more experiences and interactions with the people who follow me. Thank you guys so much for the support you have shown to my blog, High Accountability, High Morale, and Leadership in Life. I really appreciate just the amount of people that give feedback, that pop open and looks at the emails and then make comments on it. Like I'm super excited about how you guys are just learning along with me. I have 20 years of leadership development, primarily in developing teams. I've had the wonderful experiences working as a store manager, a district manager, a regional level leader, where I had a team of almost 10,000 over 97 locations in 5 states, right? And so I've had this opportunity to really learn people by leading teams of all different sizes. My latest position in corporate America, I worked as a senior director of field leadership development, where I spent my time designing leadership programming for leaders at every level. So I have that L&D experience and that operations experience in terms of I've been in the field and I've worked those positions. I think that it positions me well as a coach. I specialize right now in teaching leaders how to create high accountability, high morale environments. Hey, Chrissy, hello from Florida. I'm from Florida too. I am positioned right here outside of Orlando, Florida. I am an ICF accredited coach. And again, I specialize in high accountability, high morale environments. When I introduce myself, I love to tell people what I do, but what I do isn't necessarily who I am, right? Those are two different things. So I've told you a little bit about what I do, but who I am. I'm a mom to four. I have the unique parenting experience of having a 20-year-old, so a young adult, and then also having a 6-year-old, a kindergartner. And I got two in between. I'm a wife to my college sweetheart. We've been together more than 20 years. And I'm a friend to many. I really think that's I don't know, like my special sauce is I know how to be a friend, like, and I befriend almost anyone. um, a little bit of more about me. I love to travel, entertain, and I love to laugh. So I'm always cracking a joke, even in serious moments. I've been known to find the funny, like at a funeral, but something is funny happening everywhere. But that's a little bit about who I am and my personality. I'm a little raspy today. I'm getting over a cold. But let's dive right into the lesson. So today, in our micro learning, as you're enjoying your lunch and listening, I'm going to talk about three key things. Number one, the number one mistake leaders make in disagreement. We'll talk about the three strategies to handling opposing views effectively, and then how to turn conflict into collaboration. So, how do we kind of switch that conversation around when we're in disagreement to get people or win people over and get them on our side? And so those are the top three topics right there. So while I have your attention, my first question for you guys is, what do you think is the number one mistakes leaders make in disagreement? And when I say mistake, what are the things that we do that maybe we don't capitalize on in the conversation, or perhaps we do that escalates the conversation? What do you think is the mistake that we make in disagreement? Before I go ahead and reveal that answer. And I'll give you a few seconds to ponder that. Let's see if we can get an answer or a guess to come in. Anybody with a guess on the number one mistake leaders make in disagreement? Listening. Yes, definitely. So I had someone say listening. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Letting emotions take control. Definitely. Getting defensive and not listening. Somebody's on it, not actively listening. Okay. So we're kind of on there. So I'm going to pop it right out there for you. There's two, there's a tie. The number one is ignoring the conversation, meaning there's an argument happening and we're acting like nothing's going on. So I think that's the number one mistake that leaders make, is to ignore the conversation. They stop listening. They pretend nothing is wrong, and it really does a disservice, right? And then the other one is they become overly defensive. So I think someone else said that, reacting or letting their emotions take control. Absolutely right. So it's a tie for the number one mistake leaders make: ignoring the conversation or becoming overly defensive. And here's what happens when we ignore the conversation, that avoidance, it creates this silence. And then now people are hesitant to share their concerns because, number one, they don't know where you stand, or number two, they think you're not going to do anything about it. So silence, ignoring, avoiding is definitely not a behavior that you want to do as a leader when we are in times of opposing views or disagreement. We want to address, right? The other part of that is becoming overly defensive. When we become defensive, we shift the focus, right? Because it's no longer about whatever the issue is at hand. It becomes about our personal feelings. It becomes about how the situation escalated. And this is where you find conversations. Well, now we're standing on principle, right? Like, yeah, they may be right, but it's the principle of the matter. It's how they spoke to me. It's how they made me feel. And so now it's no longer about the actual issue. We are addressing the defensive behavior. Solution to both: approach disagreement with curiosity, not conflict. So this is where we take deep breaths. So physically we calm ourselves down. I've taught my 6-year-old how to kind of cope and calm himself down. I'll teach you a little bit today. I tell them to smell the roses and blow out the candles. So take a deep breath, and you can do this right now at your desk while you're sitting there. We can practice how we respond in a situation of disagreement. We're going to smell the roses and blow out the candles. So on the count of three, I want everybody to just kind of smell the roses as deeply as you can. 1, 2, and 3. You're smelling, and now you're blowing out the candles. You're pretending there's a cake in front of you, and you're giving it a good blow. And notice how physically your body is a little bit more relieved. So when you're in positions of disagreement, we're not going to avoid or ignore. We're not going to become defensive. What we're going to do is we're going to calm down, and then we're going to be curious versus confrontational. So, what questions can you ask? What is this situation teaching you? And what can you learn about this person or the situation in this experience? So, that's how we're going to address the number one way that leaders, number one mistake that leaders make in disagreement. All right, so then moving on, we're going to talk about three strategies to handling opposing views. I just gave you one. Physically, we're going to calm down, right? Next, we're going to listen to understand and not to respond. So I love that so many people said that the number one mistake is not actively listening. You're right, because really the solution or the strategy to really leading when people are in opposing views or when people are in disagreement is to step back and listen. Use active listening techniques. Again, we're going to paraphrase what they say. We're going to do what I call sometimes selective agreement. I see your point. I understand where you're coming from. But it allows them to know that I am listening, that I hear you. I'm not necessarily saying I feel the same way. I don't necessarily have to feel the same way. But taking the time to let the person know that I hear you is super important. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to seek common ground before trying to solve the problem. And if you guys are in a position of leadership and you're leading a team, sometimes this is going back to whatever our goals are. So, hey, okay, things are getting heated right now. We're having this disagreement or this conversation. Let's circle back to what we do agree on. Sometimes that is, hey, we all want to win. Hey, we're all on the same team. Hey, just like you, I have the same focus on doing what's best for our customers. But find a way to go back to common ground. It helps to mentally reset us back to what's important. And then we move forward to addressing whatever those differences are. So it's a very, very quick mind shift that really helps to have that difficult conversation because you're resetting us back to the things we have in common versus the things that we don't have in common. Lastly, respond, don't react. Use measure responses to maintain your professionalism. And so, what I mean about using these measure uh, responses is really, really, really just thinking strategically about how you're reacting to the information that's coming at you. Not necessarily being so very focused on offense. I like to tell people offense is something that you decide or something that you have to believe in. You can call my dress ugly, but unless I believe it or unless I think there's some truth to it, it really should not bother me. It's just your opinion. And so when we're trying to respond, we're responding again with curiosity. So rather than me responding to, oh man, that dress is ugly, it's what about the dress you don't like? Or is there anything you do like about the dress? But really responding in a strategic manner that does not necessarily escalate the issue, but keeps you focused on being productive. So I'm going to pause there real quick. We've already went over two of the three things we said we were going to discuss in this micro learning. We identified the number one mistake that leaders make. And we've talked about three strategies for handling oppositions with the bonus of a quick breathing technique to help you to get started in conversations that may feel heated. I want to open up the chats and ask you guys for your feedback. Have you used any of these strategies? Do you feel like any of them have worked for you in the past? Or are any of these strategies something new that you'll add to your toolkit to apply? And I'll give you a second to kind of type in there. And guys, it doesn't feel like it, but you guys are already halfway through this micro learning. We're approaching about 15 minutes. And so I love this kind of pace where we can kind of get nuggets, we can interact with each other, and we can kind of go about our days. And we're almost halfway there. Any questions that you may want to drop in the chat line? All right. So I saw someone say, remembering to pause and seek common ground. Somebody's going to add out blowing out the candles. Isn't that such a great way? People have tried to teach me breathing techniques forever. And this is the one that has stuck with me the most. And I was like, man, I should have looked at how to teach, things to kindergartners, because I've been teaching it to adults and it's so much more effective now. Common ground is a great place to start where we can work together. Definitely, definitely. All right, so now let's move on to our next portion of our call, which is how do we turn conflict into collaboration, and what are some of the things we can do? And again, these are going to feel very familiar in terms of what we've already discussed. So, one of the things that you want to do is reframe the situation. How can you view this person as a partner versus an adversary? And I like to say that because sometimes when we have opposing views, we automatically kind of go to our corners and we treat it as now this person isn't on my side. Or now we are, we're not on the same page. And when we start treating it like we're not on the same page, I just kind of flip the screen so that you guys can see me and the content. Hopefully, it's big enough for you guys. But when we focus on this person as an adversary, or we're picking sides or corners, um, it really just stunts our ability to move forward in a conversation. How do we look at this person as someone that's on our team? So think about a SWOT analysis where you think about the strength, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. If you think about this person's position or what their opinion or what they're bringing to the table as a part of your SWOT analysis, maybe they're bringing a potential threat that you didn't think about. Maybe they're bringing an opposing view that is getting you to critically think about your idea. But if you can see this person as a partner and expanding the way that you think about something versus an adversary, it really helps you to look at the person differently, respond differently, and to move the conversation forward. The next thing is, how do you encourage diverse perspectives? Again, if you want to turn whatever may be conflict into a collaborative environment, do you ask open ended questions to ensure that all voices are heard on your team? Um, do you do this in a way that avoids blame, or maybe avoids judgment? Um, or, or perhaps do it in a way that isn't dismissive, meaning I ask a question, but before you have a chance to answer, I'm already moving on to what the solution is. When we want to encourage diverse perspectives, again, part of that active listening, we're asking questions, we're paraphrasing, we're stepping back. And again, we're creating an environment where people are seeing this as a collaborative experience versus a confrontation or an experience riddled with conflict. How do you create a win win outcome? So, when you're having these difficult conversations, sometimes taking a step back and asking a question, what would a good resolution look like to you? What I love about doing it is it shifts the responsibility, especially if you're the leader and and maybe you're mitigating between two of your subordinates, or you're having a conversation with a peer, and both of you guys, are standing 10 toes down on your opinion. Just take a step back, smell the roses, blow out the candles, and then ask, what would a good resolution look like for you? And what it does is it shifts that person's mindset from maybe trying to defend their point to now trying to create a solution or start thinking about what moving forward looks like. And it changes again this conversation from us being button heads or confronting each other to us now having a co-creation conversation where we're looking at what the solutions can be. And lastly, you want to make sure that you in an alignment. A lot of times we agree to disagree, and maybe sometimes that is the alignment, is that, hey, your position is your position, my position is my position. How do we move forward? I think it's very, very key, because sometimes we walk away from conversations with different understandings because we don't take the time to summarize the key agreements. Make sure at the end of these conversations, especially if you're leading through disagreement, that there is at some point of the conversation, especially as you are ending it, even if sometimes you have to end abruptly and come back to alignment, you need to summarize what the key agreements are. What have we decided is go forward and that we will move forward with? All right. Here's a bonus page, right? I'm going to give some practical phrases for navigating disagreement. And I want to open up the comments again. I want to hear from you guys. Tell me in the comments phrases that you have used that you found effective to kind of navigate a disagreement in the workplace. I'm going to call out a few and I'll tell you the best time to use those, but I would love for you guys to drop in the comments what's your go to phrase when you're trying to navigate a disagreement. All right, so I'll put mine back up on the screen. So this is one of my favorite. I like to say, well, help me understand your perspective on this. And I love this because it opens up the conversation. It allows me to be curious. It gives me time to, if I am having an emotional response or reaction to the person, it gives me a chance to kind of calm down and allow them to kind of talk through. This is really a great time to use this phrase is at the beginning of a disagreement. Again, it shows that curiosity. I heard someone say, how do we move forward? It helps switch people to focus on solutions. Yes, love, love, love that one. That's a great one. Thank you for calling that out, Sherry. Here's another question or phrase that I use when I'm navigating disagreement. Um, what's most important to you in this situation? I love, love, love asking that question. What's most important to you in this situation? Because it allows us to focus on what matters the most. It allows me as a listener to take a step back and really understand what is this person really trying to achieve in this conversation. Maybe perhaps we've gotten diluted with tone or offense has creeped into the situation. Let's take a step back and help me to understand what's most important to you in this situation, right? And that's best to use, especially that phrase when it's starting to escalate. Sherelle, I love your comment. Let's think through this together. Very collaborative, shifts the atmosphere. It's not a I'm on this side, you're on this side. How do we think through this together? I love that phrase. Here's my other go to. Let's identify where we align before tackling our differences. Again, it takes us back to that common ground, right? And it's best used when you're feeling stuck in a disagreement. Maybe now you guys are moving into silent mode. I've said what I've said. You said what you said. We're not sure kind of how to move forward. Pull this one right out of your toolkit. Hey, let's identify where we align before we tackle our differences. Let's kind of go back to the drawing board. Let's see where we have common ground. Let's focus there. And then let's try and proceed forward. And the last but not least, I see your point and I'd like to add another perspective. I love this again. It reinforces that I hear you. I understand exactly what you're saying to me. And I get it. I completely get it. Allow me to add another perspective. What I love about this, it allows you to present a counterpoint without necessarily triggering defensiveness. So I'm not going against you. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm not saying that you have faulty thinking about the situation. But what I am saying is, let me give you another perspective. There's nothing wrong with what you're saying, but let me offer another perspective. Go ahead and put in your chat line what you think in the chat line, what you think about those phrases. And if you've picked up any that you would, again, add to your toolkit so that you can use later. All right. So, as we are going into the last 5 minutes of this micro learning, let's talk a little bit about key takeaways. As I'm going over the takeaways, I want to hear your questions. Drop in the chat line, maybe any questions regarding disagreement or how do you handle opposing views. Today, I did an article on my high accountability, high morale, and how do you lead a team with opposing political views. But I'm taking all questions for the next few minutes, and then we're going to wrap up with these key takeaways. So, disagreement, again, it's an opportunity for growth as you go into those conversations, go in those conversations, really thinking about, not thinking about, but being curious. What can I learn about this person? What can I learn about this situation or this topic, how can I gain another perspective? Avoid the trap of either reacting defensively or annoying the problem. We said at the beginning, that's the number one mistake that leaders make in disagreement. They ignore, I don't know why annoy is written there, but it should be ignored the problem, or they react defensively, right? And then next, use active listening, common ground, and measured responses. Again, so key, that common ground piece. How do we do that mindset shifts that keep people focused on we're on the same team? So just because we have a difference of opinion, it does not mean that we're not allies, right? And then conflict resolution, again, is a leadership skill that strengthens the team. Your ability to resolve conflict is what really adds value to who you are on your team. If you feel that you maybe have gaps, is that something that you still need to work on? Is it something that you would love to increase your your ability in? Definitely partner with a coach to help you practice out some of those situations. Go through the root of what may be holding you back in conflict and conflicting situations. But really, conflict resolution is so key to being a great leader and leading teams. All right, so I'm going to open it up for anyone to drop any questions in there. I see Yolanda saying, can you share the PowerPoint? Yes, Yolanda, I can email it to you. I have your email address. No problem at all. Anybody else have any questions as it relates to me and who I am, or leading through disagreement? All right. And so, as we're wrapping it up, I'll share my last little portion here about my invitation to help you go deeper. Couple things that you can do if you like what you heard today and you want to continue to support me and Shazier Coaching and Consulting. Number one, subscribe to my newsletter. It's available here on LinkedIn, but it's also on my website, dorisjacksonshazier.com. You can book a discovery session with me on my website. We'll take about 30 minutes and we can explore ways that I can either help you as a leader. I do one on one executive coaching, but also if you are a leader or a director or a manager in your company, maybe you're thinking about facilitating workshops or ways that we could work together. Book a discovery session and we can definitely do that. What it takes to be a great leader in this current climate. Great question, Sherelle. It takes a lot of things to be a great leader in this climate, but um, if I would summarize it down to one, and I wrote an article about this last week, I think it's love. And I don't think people think about love as a strategy or a key component to leadership. But I think that love is important not only in the workplace, but also not only at home, but also in the workplace. It's loving people with accountability. It's showing care, showing compassion, being patient, understanding that people are carrying a lot. They're dealing with a lot of things emotionally. And if you can find a way to be loving and professional in those environments, I think it's a game changer right now. I also think emotional intelligence is probably one of the key things to the climate right now. If you can increase, your knowledge and emotional intelligence and how self awareness impacts self regulation, but also relationship management, I think that's a key driver as well. So thanks for asking that question, Sherelle. Again, how do you go deeper? Join my 12-week leadership elevation experience where I really talk about the core leadership um, competencies. I talk about those top 5 things that I believe all leaders need, and then how do you master those and implement those into your business. And it's a personalized coaching program that includes assessments and my signature leadership box that's mailed to you and workbook, but it's a whole experience. But definitely DM me, book a discovery session. Think about me as you're thinking about your next workshop, as you're thinking about your next workshop or team building activity. I would greatly appreciate it. And last but not least, I'm going to put a QR code on the screen. So if you're in your laptop and you have your phone available, definitely scan that QR code. It has all of my social media information. My cell phone number is there when you can reach me, but it also has a survey. I feel like feedback is a gift. So I would appreciate your feedback on how this micro learning went today. And I would love to hear, you can drop it in the chat or you can drop it on that survey, other topics you'll like to see me cover. Um, I'm super excited about just the opportunity to do these micro learnings and have you guys join for 30 minutes. Next month, I'm going to be talking about my book, Pieces to Peace, how I overcame COVID in corporate. And I talk about my COVID experience and how it was the interruption of everything for me and really got me to think about my life differently and how it propelled me to leaving corporate America, going full time into entrepreneurship and just a lot of good details about how to survive and heal from toxic work environments. But we're at our 30 minutes. I don't want to hold you over. Thank you so much for spending part of your lunch break with me. I really, really appreciate it. Have a good day, everyone. And thanks so much for participating in the chat line. I really appreciate it.